Nice.
Okay, well, I mean, I think you could probably get started whenever you want. Thank you.
Okay. So this is my presentation on how to win hackathons and bounties. And first, why should you care about hackathons and bounties? So, kind of my life story, but in 2021, I entered a hackathon from Skynet Labs with my project Zenbase, and I won like half a million Sia coin at the time, which was 2K. And that was around here. And overnight, Elon Musk tweeted about like the dog coin and all of the low price, high supply coins like Sia coin just like pumped immediately up to like 40K here, which was wild. So also I they hired me shortly after that as well. And it was like my first real job post college. And I made 80K at that time, but the pay scale was all public. So I already knew I was going to make 100K the next year. And the project also ended up being part of the roadmap for Skynet. So, did I really make 120K in a year off of one hackathon? No, because I'm kind of stupid and this is where I sold because I knew the company was going to shut down soon and I thought it was going to be like worthless then. But in writing this, I kind of realized that, had I held, I could have sold here and I would still made like 20K, which is crazy. And since then, I've done like a ton of other hackathons and it's brought me a lot of opportunities. I won a hackathon with Boba, and it got me a referral and an interview, but not a job, unfortunately. I won a hackathon with Clayton, a couple bounties, some audit contests, uh, and a couple months ago, I won for a hackathon with Akash Network. And from that, I am now working part time with them. I'll be creating a bounty program and I'll have, I think, 9K a month to spend on that. And I never worked on a team before for these. So these are all solo wins. So these are my credentials. And I'm not promising all of these things will happen to you if you do hackathons, but I'm just trying to say like it a lot of opportunities have opened up for me in doing stuff like this. So how do I win? Step one, spend half the time on the idea really. Uh you gotta think really deeply about like what do the judges want? What does the organization want? And some of the common things that they're looking for is like to incubate the project because they have a lot of people who are excited to spend money on the chain. But if there's no projects on the chain, then it's dead. So that's one of the things to get developers. They might want to get new faces in looking at their software, making open source contributions, and maybe using it in their own projects or in their own startups or bringing it to bigger companies to compete with like AWS and stuff like that. And then a lot of orgs, some of them like are kind of a solution looking for a problem. They have innovated in some way, which they think is like gonna change the world, but they don't quite know like how to do that yet. And so to find partnerships and use cases is another big thing. And like I know all of these things are kind of what they want, and you might want to build what you want to build, of course. And that's fine too. I think you can do both of them. You just have to have an idea of what you build and you what you want to build, and then find a hackathon that applies to. And so for more concrete stuff of how I do that research, I always start at their ecosystem page. What's missing? Do they have like 1,000 swaps already? Don't be Uniswap number 14 in that case. Do they have a lending protocol yet? Do they have, any NFT projects? Any of that? Look and see what's missing and build that. How is their tech useful in filling needs in existing tools and communities as well? Is there open source software out there already that this new tech could be useful for? All things that you should probably think about. Uh, some examples with the projects I created and how I came to those conclusions. So, Skynet was a decentralized storage company, kind of like Filecoin, but it focused primarily on web use cases. So it was persistent storage with no structure, and GunDB was this open source. It's peer to peer, but it's not really crypto. It's got a structured database, but they don't have any persistent storage. It's just peer to peer. So these two use cases complemented each other, and because of that, they both made each other better. And I think that's why it was my project was such a success on that. Uh, my Dataverse project was a proof of concept of an oracle, and there were a lot of new chains that didn't have oracles yet. And because of that, certain protocols that need oracles, like a lending protocol, for example, might not even be able to exist. So that's kind of why I built that. And with my Lurker Llama project, I didn't really intend for it to go this way, but I think the Akash network was just really looking for new people to come on and get familiar with their tech and stuff. And like, I didn't really do very much to convince them to give me the opportunities that they gave me. I think that's just what they were looking for, and not so much of what my project was in general. So, step two, I think, is you should focus really heavily on de risking. And an easy way to do that is to submit to multiple projects at the same time. Unfortunately, like bad judging exists and it has screwed me over sometimes in my own projects. So, like, you have to consider that when you're doing these types of things. Um, Really, the thing that makes me the most upset is not when I lose, but when I lose to somebody who cheated or that their project just sucked and they didn't put any hard work into it. That is what I hate the most. And so, if you can find multiple hackathons that are somewhat related, uh, it's usually they're usually okay with you submitting the same project as long as it was built within the time frame. And so you can do that and just highlight the relevant portions to each project in the pitch video and your documentation, and uh, that's completely fine. Step two examples. I only kind of started doing this halfway through, like my hackathon uh, journey, I guess. and it was after like a brutal loss where I spent about, I think, 2 months working on this project for a big prize. And not only did they not like pick my project, but they forgot to even mention it uh in the video where they announce all the projects. So I was very very sad about that. So I learned from that, and the next project I did was Dataverse, and I applied to 3 hackathons with that one. One was near, one was Clayton, and there was another one that I don't quite remember, but near was the bigger one. I lost that, but I managed to get a prize from Clayton. And for Lurker Llama, since I was a Ray Guild member, I knew that we had a rip that was kind of related to it. I knew I could at least get paid through the rip, even if I lost the hackathon. So that's why I did that. Step three is to choose something that like you are super good at, or something that makes you special, even if you think that it makes you worse than people in some way. I think that it's very important that you hone in on that. Even if you're, say, new to crypto, use that. Think about how is your perspective different from other people who are so used to crypto and the UIs and the terminology and all that. So use that especially. And if you're, don't just be like the millionth EVM dev, because there's too many people already posting the same project everywhere. There's a ton of EVM devs already. If there's a network that uses an uncommon language, then they usually have less devs. And so that might be something that makes you more competitive. Side note, don't join a hackathon with like super high prize values and a ton of participants, because you're usually not going to do very well on those. It's hard to do very well on those in comparison to smaller ones. Um, I think I went over this point. Oh, and pay a lot of attention to to how the judging works as well. There's some I've entered which I didn't really do my due diligence on that, and I realized it was more of a popularity contest with quadratic voting or something like that. And if that's something that you're good at, if you can drive people to vote for your thing, then absolutely that's probably a good hackathon for you, but it wasn't for me, so I didn't do well there. Examples. Boba ID was an EVM project, but they had this new tech which was like off-chain workers, which allowed you to bring API data from elsewhere onto the chain very easily. I would kind of say it's similar to an Oracle, but not really because it was like built into the chain. But because of that, everybody building in that hackathon had to come up with something entirely new. And so I think that was why I did very well there. Uh, and I covered this point, I think. Oh, and if you make physical products, that is something that I've seen people win very often with, like Internet of Things projects or just anything really. If you can have a physical aspect to it, then that's something that like makes you stand apart and it makes you unique. And I think a lot of judges like to see that as well. Uh, Step three is to reduce the scope aggressively. Usually I can kind of plan that I'll probably get a prize. Well, I'll maybe have a 50% chance of that, but placing number one is something that I feel is completely unpredictable. You can spend months on a project and still not place number one. and still lose to a team that probably spent a week on it, in fact. So what I try to do is imagine that I'm going to absolutely win the last place prize of every hackathon that I'm entering in with a project, and based off of that, think about how much time I can afford to spend based on how much I want to make hourly. And one way to do that kind of easily is to make something that bridges two existing things. Because if you have this open source project XYZ and this one ABC, it's a lot easier to make something impressive by just creating an adapter or a plugin or something that makes the two work together than it is to create an entirely new thing or like those things separately. And judges still love that. They love to see that. So, an example, my one of my first projects, Zenbase, was only 55 lines of code because it was just an adapter. And it didn't take me that much time either. Most of it was talking to uh, in their support channel with the founder. And step four is actually build the thing. I've been talking this entire time, and we're just now getting to the part where we build the thing. Uh, all that research you've done into what the judges want, this is where you actually put that into practice. Another thing, obviously, you should build it well and it should work and it should be like high quality. But while you're doing it, make sure you're visible and you ask a lot of questions because, like, a lot of the submissions are people who are like they built this thing once probably 5 years ago and then they submit it to every single hackathon ever for the next 5 years, even even though it wasn't built within the time period. And you would think that judges filter it out, but like a lot of the times they don't, and occasionally they'll actually win cheating like that. So make sure that it's easy to tell that you're a real person and that you're actually trying to work on this and build it and use their tech. That counts for a lot, I think. And if they have office hours, it's good to go to that too. It's a great way to see the competition. I haven't really had a situation like this before, but if you go there and you see 100 people steadily building, then maybe you might think, well, I probably don't have great chances of winning this because there's so much competition, and maybe you'll quit. But I don't know if I would actually quit. But it's still good to know. And usually it's like maybe 5 people who are actually competing with you, who are actually going through the code base and trying. And, if you think about it, you just have to be the best of like half of those 5 people, which is better chances than you would think. And I think it's fine to post and talk about your project idea and stuff like that. But I usually don't post my code to GitHub until like the day before, just to not give anyone any ideas to copy from me. But I don't think that's like super important either. That might just be me. Um, Step five is the documentation, video, and the demonstration, which are all kind of related. Basically, nobody's going to try your thing usually, which is really sad because you put all this work into it and nobody's actually going to run it and install it or even like connect their wallet to it a lot of the time. especially in the bigger hackathons where you have like $1 million prizes and therefore 10,000 projects who submit it, who the judges have to go through. And so to get around that, you have to think really hard about how you're documenting it. Like, be really, uh, do a really good job of making sure you document everything so that the judge could just read it through and understand that, yeah, this is a feasible thing that probably works. Bonus points for having it be interactive so they can just like click and see it run. In the videos, I I usually do these focus on these 3 points in order. So you want to make sure the first thing you say lets the judges know how your project uses the tech or how it fulfills the requirements so that they don't just filter you out unnecessarily. And then after that, you want to really harp on the research you did into why and how this is the solution that they should give the prize money to. And lastly, you should show that the thing works. And I think if you did all three of these things, then you did about the best you can. And you can never guarantee that you win a hackathon or a bounty, but if you do these three, then you're at least giving yourself the best chance that you could have had, which is usually like pretty good anyway. I think I'd probably have about a 50% win rate. And step six is, submit and pray to the judges. And that's my presentation. Any questions?
Thanks. Yeah. Um, woo! Yeah, that was a lot of good information. You're going into a hackathon can be pretty stressful sometimes. What I usually look at it like I'm doing something that I want to do anyways. And I think there's kind of two ways to go into it, and it's either that you go in and it's like, well, even if no one it doesn't win, then I got to do something I wanted to do, and I got to learn some new technology. Or you go in really with the idea of winning, and in that case, it's like in something like ETH Denver, which is a big, they have a big hackathon with multiple sponsors. You're dealing with maybe mashing together several different things and trying to stack the different hackathon prizes from different sponsors, and um, yeah, I don't know. I think it it's a, it can be a super fun experience if you're doing it with friends and you're keeping it casual. But I mean, there's people that's how they make their living, just hackathon to hackathon. Um, Anyone else have a
Yeah.
question? Sorry, that wasn't really a question. But
Well, I think that's true too. I also think you can do both. You can build what you want. There's hackathons going on all the time, everywhere. You just have to, you're building what you want, but maybe you can also get paid for it.
Okay, I have two questions. So I was a little surprised because uh, it sounds like your my hackathon theory has always been like it's like a lot of good marketing, and it sounded like you were also confirming that. So if you're gonna like split it between marketing and like the actual coding, what would you say is like the percentages?
Uh, I would think it'd probably be primarily like the marketing and the research, but it's still a lot of coding too because they want somebody who understands the tech and like they actually want developers. So if you're a developer who's good at marketing, you'll probably do very well because they want somebody who will be part of the community for a long time too. And part of that is being technical. If it is a technical hackathon, because some of them aren't. If it's like for design or like if it's content writing, then they want to see that.
Someone asked, to tack onto that real quick, is that um, the like when you're sorry, when you were talking about know your judges and stuff, I think it's kind of the same thing. You got to know the what the motivation of the hackathon was. Sometimes the hackathon itself is purely for marketing, you know, DevRel kind of thing. Introduce devs to our stack, or try to get some buzz around this hackathon and get in some kind of news article. Sometimes it is very much like we're looking for devs that can do this. We're trying to find new ideas, and sometimes maybe on a more negative side, it's like we're trying to find people to do cheap or free work. But so it's always important to look at the motivations going into these things. Here's a good question. What website do you use? Oh, okay. What website do you guys use for searching hackathons?
I think there's all the normal websites, but there's also like if you're in the Discord of a lot of these communities, they might post it there, but not like publicly.
Awesome. And how about the Denver Hackathon? How's that going to be? That was another question. Have you been to it yet?